In today's video, you will learn which assets Warren Buffett considers to be the worst and best to invest in during inflation. We'll categorize these investments into 5 groups and list them in reverse chronological order in a framework which shall be called the Investor's Protection Against Inflation Pyramid. Well, the term sounds dramatic, doesn't it? Thank you for clicking, bringing you the best tips and tools for reaching financial freedom in just under 10 minutes. So without any further ado, let's get rich. At the bottom of the pyramid is the worst of the 5 investments to own during times of inflation, and the first one being assets denoted in a currency. Well, perhaps this didn't come up as much of a surprise for most of you, right? Of course, having inflating currency or paper money is the worst asset you can have in an inflationary environment, because simply the money you have in a bank account or kept in a safe in your closet will be eaten away day after day, week after week, month after month. Therefore, if we anticipate inflation, say in the dollars for example, we don't want to maintain dollars in our portfolios for that reason. Nobody wants to keep playing the bad card. So paper money is the worst to hold on to during a recession or inflation situation. Next up in our list, unproductive assets. This includes assets such as paintings, properties, gold, etc. These assets are not completely useless to own during times of inflation. However, generally speaking, such assets are expected to at least keep their real value. As time goes by, they won't significantly increase your purchasing power either, which is why they don't end up higher in our investor protection pyramid. Here's a short video of Warren Buffett elaborating about this point.
If you take all of the gold in the world, don't get too excited now, and put it into a cube, it will be a cube that's about 67 feet on a side. So you could have a cube, if you owned all the gold in the world, you could have a cube that would be 67 or 68 feet on a side, and you could get a ladder and you could climb up on top of it, and you could say, I'm sitting on top of the world, and you could fondle it, you could polish it, you could do all these things with it, stare at it, but it isn't going to do anything.
This holds true with any other unproductive assets. Now, if you need to do more than just to preserve your purchasing power, or let's say the value of your unproductive assets, you are going to have to pull off a task which is quite challenging. You are going to have to foresee how scared people will be of inflation in the future, and based on that data, you decide how your reaction will be. In fact, it is much more complicated than that, and we are here trying to simplify the topic as much as we possibly can. The next type of assets are productive assets, mediocre type. Okay, unproductive assets are great for maintaining their real value in inflationary times, but what if we wanted to increase their value? Productive assets are assets which produce valuable services or products. Many wealthy people love to invest in stocks and or in other businesses, and so on. However, not all businesses are created equal. The first type of business that you should stay away from during times of inflation at all costs is the type that requires continuous investment just to stay afloat.
Unfortunately, most businesses will not come out well in real terms during inflation. Their earnings may go up a fair amount over time, but they're compelled to put more and more dollars into the business just to stay in the same place. And the worst kind of a business is one that makes you put more money on the table all the time and doesn't give you greater earnings.
Here's an exaggerated example that hopefully will simplify the point. Matt is a teenager selling chewing gums at his local school. Each year, he puts in a large order from Alibaba of $1,000 of chewing gums that he will later on sell to his classmates and other students during the ensuing 12 months. His profit margin is 10%, so after a year of selling, he has $1,100 in his pocket. The next year, he decides to put in a new order of the same number of chewing gums for $1,000, while giving himself $100 in return. 10% profit. Nice, isn't it? Now, let's see what happens to Matt's business if there's a 10% inflation each year. For simplicity, this devaluation will take place overnight. At the end of the year, Matt has $1,100 again from his sales. However, when he decides to order from Alibaba again in the next year, he realizes that the price has increased. Gums are now 10% more expensive. And to buy the same number as last year, Matt must put up the full $1,100. Bummer, thinks, but decides to order anyways. The next year, Matt increases his sales, thanks to inflation, to $1,210, but again, he must invest that full amount just to restore his inventory in the next year. Notice that if this cycle keeps on going, Matt will never be able to take any money out of his business, meaning no profit. In the real world, these are often the businesses with low returns on tangible assets. The next type of business to stay away from is one with no pricing power. The businesses that, despite periods of inflation, cannot afford to raise their prices. One of which I could think of right now is barbershops. Because if they do, a lot of clients would just opt to get a haircut at home for themselves. Next up on our pyramid, productive assets, grade type. Here's another exaggerated example for you. Matt's classmate, Sarah. Sarah created a song and published it on Spotify. She had to spend $1,000 for renting the studio and hiring the DJ who makes the sound for her. Now she's receiving $100 from Spotify in royalties each year. In other words, when there is no inflation, she's earning a 10% return just like Matt did. Now, what happens if there is a 10% inflation? The first year, Sarah earns $100, just like expected. Then inflation hits. What's good about Sarah's business is that she doesn't have to put up additional capital for it to keep it running. The next year, she will enjoy a profit of $110 thanks to inflation, then $121 the next year, and so on. All of it is free cash flow. It is money that she can take with her and spend on elsewhere, or perhaps reinvest to expand her music library and create additional albums. The three qualities listed under the mediocre type or productive assets may be completely reversed to provide the three qualities you are searching for in a firm or company that will operate well during inflationary periods. You are looking for the following: low capital requirements and high returns on assets. Businesses with strong brands such as Microsoft or Apple belong here too. And also pretty much any software company where you have huge economies of scale. So what do we find in the top of the pyramid? Before we discuss the best type of investment, kindly consider helping the channel grow by subscribing and giving this video a like should you have found it helpful. Thank you. Now, according to Warren Buffett, the number one best asset to invest in is your own earning power. Yes.
And the best investment of all, I mean, if you're the leading brain surgeon in town or the leading lawyer in town or the whatever it may be, you don't have to keep re-educating yourself to be that in current terms. You bought your expertise when you went to medical school or law school in old dollars, and you don't have to keep reinvesting. And you retain your earning power in current dollars.
The best protection against inflation is actually to invest in yourself. Make yourself valuable to other people. Then you will always command a given portion of people's production of goods and services. And you don't have to care about where the currency stands, whether that is Bitcoin, dollars, or even Seychelles. Now, I understand that your annual earnings might be limited and predefined in your employment contract, but the skill set you possess will always be required whether you are a doctor, a pilot, a software engineer, etc. Here's a super fast recap. Number 1. Anything denoted on a currency will take a huge hit during times of inflation, and you should probably stay aware of those assets. Number 2. Unproductive assets just sit there, and while they should keep their value, there are better alternatives. Number 3. Owning a business isn't a great protection against inflation in and of itself. You must look also to its characteristics. Number 4. Business with pricing power without the need for heavy capital investment during times of inflation. If you add a little bit of leverage to that, you are probably even better off. Real estate and farmland should do fairly well too for those reasons. And number 5. The best protection against inflation is your own earning power. If you do something valuable to the society, you will always command a given portion of other people's production of goods and services. That's all we have for you today. Now get up, get out, and go get rich.